How do we apply L&D to ourselves in that respect? Do we practice what we preach? Do we drink our own champagne? So without regular learning, you're going to get left behind in the marketing space. And what worked last year isn't necessarily going to work this year. It's constantly evolving. Obviously, you can get sort of trapped in your little kind of like marketing bubble, can't you? And it's very easy to do that and not look outside of it. You're going to be wearing all the hats, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to will resonate with that in terms of, you're the paid ads person, you're the social media person, you're the content. You're the website mate, you're product market, you're everything, aren't you, essentially? So people don't know what's real and what's not anymore. The way that you're delivering that content, the way that you're speaking to your audience, etc. That's harder to replicate. The biggest thing for me and the direction that we're trying to go in is that first party data and creating content that no one else can replicate.
Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of the B2B show. I'm your host, Ugi Juric, CEO and founder of Content Monk. And a few weeks ago, I had the pleasure to speak with Barry Ryan, who is the head of marketing at Thirst. And this is one of my favorite episodes because Barry and I went really in depth on how to work in small marketing teams, how to align everyone, how to write killing content, what are they using AI for in marketing and content in general, how to educate your team, how to build the marketing team culture, and also how to create content that converts. We've covered many topics, and this episode is filled with a ton of unique insights that Barry unselfishly shared with all of us. So enjoy. Let's get into the episode. How do you apply all the L&D techniques and strategies that you're talking about in your own team, especially the marketing department?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, actually, because obviously, we're an L&D department. So how do we apply L&D to an L&D company? So how do you apply L&D to ourselves in that respect? Do we practice what we preach? Do we drink our own champagne? So yeah, I guess there's a few points into that that's worth talking about in terms of marketing. As marketing campaigns change. Well, marketing changes fast as an industry. It never sits still. It's always evolving. Um, the tools, the platforms, the algorithms, they're constantly evolving, and we have to sort of stay on top of that. SEO, paid, AI is the latest one, isn't it? That's changing everything for us as marketing people, attribution models. So without regular learning, you're going to get left behind in the marketing space. And what worked last year isn't necessarily going to work this year. It's constantly evolving. However, SEO is a little bit different to that, which I'm sure we're going to get onto later. It's kind of it stood the test of time. But in terms of like that, that's the first thing. It's always be learning, always open to learning, always sharing new ideas. We're only a small team here at first. But it's always like having a platform, like First to, share your learning, share industry knowledge with each other, what's happening, and having a central place to do that, because obviously otherwise that learning is either going to get stuck in your head, it's going to get saved on your computer, it's never going to go any further. So it's having I guess a platform or a place to share that information quickly with each other, because it is always changing, and and encouraging great ideas from everywhere as well outside of the marketing team. So obviously you can get sort of trapped in your little kind of like marketing bubble, can't you? And it's very easy to do that and not look outside of it. But I'd always encourage like ideas to come from anywhere. If that's a CEO, they're looking at it from a different perspective. They're seeing things that necessarily I might not look at, that maybe come, look outside of our industry and look outside of B2B as well. What are people doing in e-commerce? What are people doing in D2C? That kind of stuff. For me, it's having that central place where great ideas come from anywhere. So that's kind of the first part of the L&D. There's a lot of expectation on marketers to be self-learners, isn't there? Yes, you can go to university and study marketing, but what you probably learn then None of that is probably relevant when you actually go into the real world. You know, and you know, I'm not someone who did actually go to university. I'm like many people in marketing. Marketing found me, or I fell into marketing as digital marketing was taking off. Quite luckily, you know, Google was starting to take off, so I was kind of lucky in that respect that I kind of stumbled across marketing, and 14 years later, here I am. But you know, a lot of my learning has been done on the job. It's through doing the work. So there's this kind of unspoken assumption that marketing people just figure it out. You know, I'm probably as guilty of that as anyone, you know, whether it's YouTube or reading a blog or listening to a podcast, as the case may be, more recently. You know, or doing courses, which I tend to find, in all honesty, are out of date by the time you've done them, because it does move that fast. But that is again putting at teams at risk of like uneven skills, knowledge gaps, burnout, wherever it might be. So encouraging that kind of sharing, collaboration, I think it's good to have that support network about it, because especially in a smaller organization like we are, you know, effectively a startup, if you're a marketing leader in that role, you're going to be wearing all the hats, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to will resonate with that, in terms of, you know, you're the paid ads person, you're the social media person, you're the content, you know, you're the website mate, you're product market, you're everything, aren't you, essentially? And it is very easy to kind of get just kind of like stuck in that silo, not sort of, you know, you're doing the doing, you're in the weeds, you kind of, you know, you're busy, but you know, not having people kind of out there to bounce ideas off or share things with, you know, you can become isolated quite quickly. So having a place to do that, a platform to do that, it is really, really important, and to encourage that as well, and to create that space where people feel that they can share things as well, you know, spark ideas, etc.
So tell me about that kind of a platform for sharing these ideas, for sharing knowledge, trendy stuff, and that kind of stuff. Is that something that you're doing at Thirst? Like, is Thirst for that, or
Well, that
for
is
like
first, yeah, that is first.
that is okay, 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 perfect. And tell me, how do you, um, from your experience, what's the best way to encourage people to, you know, participate, to share their takeaways, their learnings, etc.? Why am I asking you this? Because we often, you know, see a problem where we can't easily, you know, engage our clients' teammates to post content on LinkedIn, for example, right? So I would say these are like the two, you know, very, very similar things. So from the psychology standpoint, what is your like go-to take? How do you encourage people to start sharing their learnings?
I'm smiling, when you were speaking, because if I had the answer to that, I'd be a very rich man. You know, I wish I wish I had the solution. And I wish that I could kind of bottle that up and give that advice out to everyone listening to this, but I don't. You know, it is really, it is a case of, you know, we're lucky at first because we have a platform that facilitates that, makes that easier. But it's still the same process of, asking people and asking them
Yeah,
again, and then asking them again
and
until it
asking them
becomes a
again.
habit. Yeah, and then asking them again
Yeah.
until it becomes a habit, and then just do it without thinking, and it is that process, and it is slow, necessarily when you're, it's slightly I mean, we're a software development company, so obviously software developers are very different animals to marketers. It is slightly easier when you're working with, when you're trying to get people to collaborate from a marketing/sales perspective. Um, I guess our magic bullet, if there is one, is we're lucky that what we're selling is the solutions to that, in a way. It is a learning platform. It's a centralized hub where, you can share knowledge, and you can share SOPs, you can share your workings, etc., your thoughts, your way of doing things with other people quite easily. And the benefit of that as well, I guess, is that obviously, if someone leaves an organization, which happens, people leave the companies, don't they, for whatever reasons, their knowledge isn't lost with them. So, if someone does have a great way of doing something, or there is a way of kind of putting a social media post together, or there is a particular way of putting a blog together, for example, when that person leaves, if your company hasn't set up a way to capture that, then you're starting from square one. Someone coming in to replace them, he's sort of, they've got one hand tied behind the back. They're trying to sort of reverse engineer what someone's done. So that's gone. So having a, I guess, it doesn't have to be a learning platform. You could do this in Google Docs, so you could have Slack, whatever it might be. It's somewhere it's easy to find that information and store that information and save it. It's really important to have a place to capture that because of that reason. You're covering yourself for the future, really. And as well, it standardizes things. There is a way of working, and like I said, you can get lost in your own head in terms of when you're doing, I guess, learning development or marketing, and you're doing stuff, but you're not necessarily telling anyone how you do that. And having a place to share that information is a way to sort of edge your bets and future proof your company and your marketing team as well.
Yeah, yeah. And tell me, what about the gamification aspect of L&D and also onboarding the new team members? Like, have you crossed around some really huge, uh, data results, whatever, where like gamification, like drastically improved time to onboard for new people, or like the productivity of people results? Like, I'm talking about, again, still like marketing department, like B2B, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I guess we've done it the other way around where, we've borrowed a lot from what the social media platforms are doing well. There's no point in reinventing the wheel. If you look at TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, um, LinkedIn, which is obviously one, we're on a lot for in our world. If you look at kind of what they're doing well, you don't need to reinvent the wheel a little bit and try and come out of anything kind of that's out of the order. They're masters at it. They're spending billions and billions of pounds doing the research. Duolingo's one that kind of gets flagged up a lot in our industry as a go-to in terms of things that they're doing well on that gamification piece. And we pulled in bits from those worlds, like shares, comments, yeah, leaderboards, certifications, badges, etc. So we pulled in the best from those worlds into the first platform. So it's all those things that you'll see, day to day when you're using social media to kind of make it sticky. We use a lot of, I guess, what's really worked for us in terms of making people want to learn and want to share with the platform is the AI personalization piece. So we've had that baked into the platform from day one. And as you'll know from any marketing, when you tend to personalize it tends to perform much better, doesn't it? And bringing that into first, so for example, you and I will learn in very different ways. You might like to read a blog post or listen to a podcast, and I might like to watch a YouTube video. Maybe we've got the same interests and we're going in the same direction in our careers, but we like to learn in different ways. And what first does from our perspective is it has that AI personalization baked in. So, just like when you use Deliveroo or Uber Eats and you like particular types of food, or you're watching Netflix, which is the one that everyone kind of knows, or I'd like to think, that your algorithm, what you're seeing, your dashboard is personalized to you and your taste. The covers that you see in the movies they're recommending, the series that they're recommending, and first works in that same way. So the great thing about that is, and where we've seen the best engagement, although not necessarily gamification in a sense, but it is pulling you in without you realizing it, is that every time you're logging into that platform, it is showing you something that you're going to be interested in. So it's showing you more podcasts. It's showing you more stuff about, podcast marketing, whatever it might be. And that's what's making it sticky. And that's what making you come back, because over time it's learning more about you and your experience is becoming more personalized to you. And obviously I think marketing can take a lot and learn a lot from that as well, and trying to personalize stuff as much as possible and not just being kind of spray and pray.
Let's go to marketing and growth for a sec. So I have like a very, very firm standpoint where AI made everyone basically a commodity, right? I mean, makes everyone a commodity, right? Like, whether from like content feature side, like you can build products fast, everyone can build features, everyone can write decent content right now, and everything is like 10 times faster, right? You can do more things with less resources. So if companies more and more like look similar to each other, right? From your experience, like, how do you win in the market in like the second part of 25 or 2026? How do you win? How do you stand out? What can companies do to win and stand out?
Hey guys, just a real quick, sorry for interrupting the episode. Did you ever feel overwhelmed with the amount of low quality and crappy content that you find on Google and LinkedIn? Well, B2B Vault, the producers of this episode, solve that problem. B2B Vault is a database of hundreds and hundreds of expert level insights and articles written by 300 plus B2B marketing experts. And B2B Vault monitors hundreds of websites every single week to uncover new trends and new articles, so you are the first to learn the new trends, insights, and playbooks from the best B2B marketing minds. And every Monday morning, we send out a newsletter with a few most important reads every B2B marketer should read at the start of their week to make sure that you hit your quota and get more deals in the pipeline. So, just very quickly, if you're interested in this, go to theb2bvault.com/newsletter and join thousands of other B2B marketers in our Monday newsletter. See you there.
That's a great question, really. And it's something I'm sure a lot of people are kind of struggling with, because AI in one sense is great. Like you said, you can create things faster, you can churn things out quicker. It's a more level playing field, especially if you're a startup. Now you can get to that place 10 times or more faster than you would have been able to get to sooner. The flip side of that, the challenge is again, as you said, is that it's very easy to replicate, especially with SEO, which is one of my favorite channels. I love it. I always have, always, it's my first love in digital marketing. Probably it always has been, always will be. But now it's harder than ever in terms of that anyone can just replicate a blog post. Anyone can just look at what you're doing and copy that, quickly as well. It's going to take weeks now. It's not going to take years to get to that point. So it is a real challenge for people. So I guess, how can you stand out in terms of that and people replicating you? One is in your tone of voice and your style. The way that you're delivering that content, the way that you're speaking to your audience, etc. That's harder to replicate. So staying low to that and staying still to your brand personality and style and tone of voice is going to be key. However, what you might say to that is, well, with AI, you could probably still replicate that anyway. But I think people can see through that. I think people can see who the originators are and who they aren't. So I do think there's some merit in terms of sticking to your guns in that. And people are always going to imitate, aren't they? But I think people are still smart enough to see through that in a lot of respects. But I think the biggest, the kind of the biggest thing for me and the direction that we're trying to go is that first party data and creating content that no one else can replicate. So if you are lucky enough to have a platform that has data, that has customer information, and then you can use that to create a report, a guide, a template, nobody can replicate that. Gong, is an example of people looking for references in terms of what they do with their Gong labs, and they pull out a lot of data from their own platform, and then they spin that into sales data to help sales and marketing people. I know Cognism are doing a lot of that with their platform as well, the content they're producing, and we're trying to do that with the stuff that we're doing with First, because that is the stuff that no one else can replicate. Because you just haven't got that data. And I think that's where it's going to go, is people being pushed down this first party data, your own data. It doesn't have to be your own platform. Obviously, you might want to link up with a research body and create a kind of a big anchor piece, a big anchor report. We've gone, it's pushed us more to go in that direction, which I think is the right thing to do. But then it's about, okay, we've done this report, we spent a lot of money, a lot of time creating it. It's then maximizing that. It's not just, it's kind of creating the report and then we're done and we're going to see some leads come in. You've got to push that out through ads. You've got to repurpose that across your socials, split it into carousels, create smaller pieces of bite-sized content from it. Maybe another report comes off the back of that, etc. You're bringing in influencers. So there's lots of ways you can carve that piece of content. And that's, as I said, in the last sort of 12 months, we've really kind of gone down that road. But the benefit has not been, and this is how you obviously sell it to your C-suite and your bosses as well, is maximize it. How you maximize that is really going to set you apart as well.
Let's talk about thirst for a moment. Like, and you're like in marketing strategies and that kind of stuff. So you said that SEO is your favorite channel. Mine as well. I mean, SEO and content, I kind of buckle
But
them
what
up together.
I put them together. I'm the same as you. I combine
Yeah.
them.
So tell me, I know in the episode that you did with on the GTM Tailspot, you said that basically your SEO strategy is um, targeting like a low volume keywords, weekly content, and you also mentioned that there's SEO fundamentals like on-page SEO optimization, internal URLs, that kind of stuff still remain unchanged. Can you tell me a bit more on what's your overall content and SEO approach right now on Thirst? Are you leveraging these kind of first part data that you talked about? And overall, how does your overall strategy how are you winning with content?
Yeah, SEO, as I said, is my first love, and the reason it is my kind of career has been mainly having to go into startups as the first marketeer, and with the best will in the world, unless you're very lucky, you're not gonna start with a huge budget, and you kind of got to prove the value, and you got to start small and build from there, haven't you? So I guess that's why SEO has always been a big sort of play for me and a big channel for us, because it's something where you can start small, you can see incremental changes, but it compounds over time. Um, so our SEO strategy started before we even launched our website. And this is harder to do in more established businesses, admittedly, because you might have a website and you might already have some form of SEO / content going on. So it's a little bit trickier. But, we started mapping out our content pillars and what we felt was important to our audience before we even built the website. And that's a good, a luxury position to be in, but that's where we were in terms of before we even built that site, we launched anything into the world, we were already mapping out who our customers were, what they cared about, and then trying to kind of reverse engineer that and build the blogs and the keywords around that. So that was our starting point. Then when we were building the website, obviously we didn't have all the pages there we wanted, but we knew we had a really clean navigation structure. We knew we wanted to have fast load speeds, easy to index, easy for the search engines to understand what we're about. We didn't overcomplicate it. We were just making sure that the foundations were rock solid for future growth. And that was our starting point. So before we even got into the keyword research and the tools, which I'm sure we'll come on to, that was our starting point. Before we dived in, so we kind of had an idea of where we wanted to go in the next 2 or 3 years, because sometimes you can get into a mess in terms of, you start in the wrong direction, or the website isn't good enough, and I've seen it, many times in organizations. You end up building 2 or 3 websites, or you end up switching directions, or whatever it might be, and sometimes there's good reasons for that. But I've seen people get themselves into a bit of a mess early on, and it's very hard to kind of unpick that. So I guess my message is, have a clear understanding of kind of where you want to go, and it will change, it will evolve, and we've gone a little bit out, kind of away from where we started, because you have to do some of the key phrases that you're chasing, who you're up against, and obviously your industry evolves as well, doesn't it? But I think having that understanding of mapping out your content pillars, where you want to go, what your audience cares about from day one, gives you a massive advantage and makes things easier as you go further down the road.
Tell me, when it comes to AI, right? How are you leveraging AI right now for your own marketing or sales or growth? Like, are there any more advanced flows, automatations, or processes that you're doing?
Yeah, so do you know, I guess where I use it mainly for SEO is, um, for helping me to do the briefs for our content writers. So, I always pride myself on trying to get to help our content writers out in terms of, giving them a decent brief, because I think the better the brief, the better the outcome's going to be. But a lot of that was in the past, kind of what was in my head, or doing a lot of manual research. But I've been really able to one, speed that up, two, get a better understanding of how we can rank on the first page with what we're up against as well. And so, in terms of like what the structure should be, what we need to include in terms of helping it to rank for AI, which is obviously something that you need to start to factor in now is how do you get those top of search for AI? That's going to become more and more important as time goes on, is how do you get that kind of AI search snippet at the top? So I've been using it to really drill down into kind of shaping our blog, so our content writers understand like the structure, what to include, the format, everything to kind of give us the best chance of ranking on the first page. And of course, it's never guaranteed, but it gives us a much better chance, and we've been seeing much better results by using AI. And ChatGPT is my favorite tool, as it is probably a lot of people listening to this. If you give it a concise understanding of kind of, what do I want, what do I need to include in my article to rank on page one, what should the structure look like, etc., it'll give you some really good outputs from that as well.
Let's combine now like the AI and the SEO. Like these are like GEO, AEO, however they're called these days. Like that's still, I would say, a territory where we don't have a lot of details yet, right? And we still do not understand how everything works. So tell me, like, what are your thoughts on that? How do you make sure that you get mentioned in the AI and LLM search results?
Well, I think the first thing to think of is from two things. Is it's you can look at it two ways, can't you? You can look at it as a big challenge, and everyone will be getting nervous about it. But you can also look at it with an abundance mindset and say, look, actually, especially if we're an earlier stage organization, we've got a great chance. In the past we couldn't get in front of the HubSpots of this world because they're so established and they're such an authoritative website, etc. But now as a startup, okay, yeah, actually, if you're quick to market, or you're quick to a key phrase that's maybe new in the industry, you've got just as good a chance of ranking on the first page as anyone now. So I think you have to look at it from a positive perspective. What I would say as well is, my big one is, don't use AI to write the content for you, because I think that is definitely a recipe for disaster in terms of duplicate content. I mean, even you can even spot AI content a mile off, can't you? If something's written by AI, I think you can sniff that and smell that straight away. And so the search engine, if they're not already picking that out and penalizing websites for that, and even if you're not now and you're enjoying great rankings off the back of it, there's definitely come a time when there's going to be an algorithm update that's going to trash you back to the penguin panda days of old, when websites just disappeared overnight. I can see something like that coming soon.
Sorry for jumping in. There was actually last week an interesting article from Ahrefs where they like analyzed, I think almost like a million websites or something like that, and there is no correlation in search rankings dropping. There is no correlation between that and whether the article is actually written by the AI or like the human article. So
Yeah.
basically, I would say that's a very interesting take from the SEO standpoint. Like, it's not intentionally punishing the AI written style of content, but it's more like punishing the content itself, like whether that content is like valuable or not valuable.
And I don't think that's ever going to, the principles of sort of great content aren't ever going to change either, like making it unique, making it relevant to your, like that isn't going to go away. It's just going to be harder to distinguish which content's been written by a human and which one's been written by an AI. So that is the challenge. So in terms of how we use it for that, like I said, we stay away from using it to write the content. That's just a big no for us, because I just think it's just opening up ourselves up to problems further down the road. But it is asking it is using it for guidance in terms of, how can we use it to, how can we structure our article? How can we create this article? What do we need to include to feature in these AI snippets? Because it's still a little bit of a black box in terms of people think they know, but no one really knows. So actually, if you ask ChatGPT, whatever it might be, Gemini, whichever one you use, how do we get those AI snippets? It'll give you the advice, it'll give you the pointers, and then you can use that to actually you sort of shape your article and your structure to give you the best chance as well. And that's still a work in progress for us, but that's kind of the most obvious sort of tip I can give people, really.
How do you see the future of marketing in a few years from now, considering that like it's a very fast-paced industry at the moment? Where do you think we're heading?
I can see marketing has been expected to be able to do even more. with less, in all honesty, which is, but yeah, even more with less. But in a way, you're doing more with less with more, if that makes sense. Because now, I speak about it from my own perspective. I'm a small organization as a marketing. Yes, we use contractors and we outsource some of our bits and pieces, but the majority of the day to day is still being done by myself. So I am still wearing all the hats, but but my job is a lot easier than it was 2 years ago when I started, because of because I can use AI as for ideas. I can help it with shorter social media posts. It's there as a marketing assistant, really. So in terms of being able to create and produce and think and ideate more quickly in a smaller team, it's saving me hours and hours now. I wouldn't even be able to put a number on how much it's saved me, but it's been incredible in terms of the difference it's made to me personally, and what we've been able to do and scale at first, which just wouldn't have been achievable. It just wouldn't without it. But as that becomes better, more efficient, smarter, I think you can almost have your team, doing your paid search, it's doing your socials for you, it's doing your marketing automation for you, and you're kind of the one in the middle, kind of making it all happen, really, making it all work. So I don't know what that means in terms of your marketing role. What you become? Do you just become a kind of an operator, and there's less kind of creative to it? I'm not too sure. It's a challenge, really, because for me personally, I always like the creative side, and I always thought that's the bit that AI can never replace. But with the latest versions, I'm not even sure that's the case anymore. It's getting that good in terms of creative. That box might be ticked as well. So it is different, but I can almost see marketing becoming more about kind of the operations, and having the bigger overarching kind of plan. Whether that's the campaign or the strategy, whatever it might be, but then being able to make sure all these tools work, um, it, to facilitate that and to make that happen, but at a lower cost and faster than what was ever possible before, I guess.
Yep, 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 definitely.
And
Um,
I don't know if that's a good or a bad
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I mean, like, from my standpoint of view, right? I would say definitely the things that we have a huge problem right now in the industry are like the standing out part that we already talked about, but also like creativity. Like all of the brands look exactly the same, also from like design perspective, messaging perspective, like creativity. I think it's a uh very important topic to raise awareness for, but also more human like, you know activities, personalized activities, going all that kind of a human first approach into building actual relationships. I mean, these are, I would say that these are the things that are timeless, right? Are timeless, and they are never going to change because people buy from the people they trust, right? But we tend to always forget that part, and I would say that now it's like becoming more critical than ever to focus on relationships and on the standing out part, because everyone kind of forgets that they get too obsessed with all new shiny things and all new shiny AI tools, that they forget about like the relationships. So I would say that marketing, I see kind of a marketing more evolving, having a bunch of tools to handle operational tasks, right? While the actual human beings can focus more on that creative aspect and on the relationships aspect of things.
I think another big challenge is going to be that authenticity piece, because, like you said, like having your brand personality, standing out, being unique is kind of everything, really, isn't it? Ultimately, that's what people are going to do. They're going to buy the people, aren't they? The brand that they connect with the most. But even now, with some of the stuff that's possible with AI in terms of creating video content that looks like humans, and the challenge is going to be how to even be even more authentic. Really, that's kind of the next wave, isn't it? And that's a big challenge, and it's be interesting how in the future, in the next few years, marketing overcomes that, because I almost think there's going to be this kind of push against it as well, because you're getting these AI videos now where it's like, like the people talking to each other in the street, and it's like someone's coming out of a marketing conference, and that, like, you can create that kind of stuff now with AI. So people don't know what's real and what's not anymore. So how you make sure you come across as real and authentic is going to become even more important than ever. So it's going to be interesting to see how sort of B2B marketing sort of tackles that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing about authenticity is that it's like really tied to originality, right? And like to be original with something, you need to really think out of the box and be the first or among the first to do something, right? So I would say it's all about, and as soon as more people start embracing that originality that you create, then it's not like original anymore, right? You get a bunch of Me Too's, you will quickly get a bunch of Me Too's, doing the same things as you. So then I would say it's all about coming up with new original things to do that are on brand, of course, with you. But also, as you said like earlier, uh, at the end of the day, we can have let's have podcasts, for example, right? There are, I don't know, like hundreds of thousands of marketing podcasts out there, but only like 20-30 of them get like 90-95% of all the listen downloads, right? So because they have the best content, right? So still, I would say it's also coming back to what you talked earlier about, that kind of a first part data that you have about your users, stories from your users, experience. That's something that can't be easily replicated by others.
I think what you'll find with those podcasts as well, without analysing them, just thinking, I bet if you were to sort of sit there and look through them, like they'll all have something in common in terms of, like, they'll know who they're for. They'll know who that audience is that they're speaking to. They'll have something interesting to say,
Yeah.
and each week. And, and they're consistent as well. So they're always showing up. So it's like you said, some of these, we try and overcomplicate things sometimes, but actually, if you look at the three things there, it's like knowing who your audience is, it's having something interesting and different to say, and it's being consistent with it. Ultimately, that's it, isn't it? That's the
Yep.
secret, really,
Yep.
that, people overlook.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Definitely. Barry, tell me, besides cash advertising, what's one of your favorite marketing books?
Besides cash advertising,
Yeah.
Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. That one, I must have read that about 5 years ago now. Probably around the same time I was reading cash advertising. And that, it talks about like the seven psychological things that influence human beings. And this is the thing, you made a great point a few moments ago about how the platforms change, or the tools change, or the technology change, whatever it might be, but people don't change. In terms of like what makes us tick, what makes us want to buy something, what makes us fall in love with something, what makes us not like something, those things won't change. Cycle that's hardwired into the fabric of being humans. And there's some great stuff in it, and it's almost something that we could probably all do with reading, and I could do with reading it, because you do forget over time that actually, when you boil it all down, humans will always be humans, and what they care about and what's going to make them want to purchase something or care about something, connect with something, is never going to change over time.
That's a great one, Barry. That's a great one. Tell me, Barry, the last question that I have for you before we wrap up has absolutely nothing to do with marketing, by the way.
Okay, here we go.
And it's something that I ask literally everyone on the pod in, real life when I meet someone and so on. How do you win at the game called life? And what is that winning for you?
How do you win the game of life, and how? Well, that's a profound question. That's a deep one.
Yeah, thank you.
You've asked me there. How do you win at the game of life? For me, it's family, really, and just being around, kind of knowing. I guess it comes back to that, knowing what you want, knowing what you start with, knowing what you care about, and then work backwards from that. So, for example, for me, it was wanting to spend more time with my you obviously get caught up in sort of chasing your career, don't you? Chasing the next level, chasing more money, whatever it might be, more responsibility. We as humans, we kind of get lost in that a little bit. Better car, bigger house, whatever it might be. And then it kind of started from kind of like knowing what's important to you. So for me, it was family. I had a young family, wanted to spend more time with them. So then I was like, okay, if that's the most important thing to me, how do I get to that and work backwards from that? So it wasn't necessarily chasing, bigger and better jobs with more responsibility and more hours, etc. It was actually, how do I find a really nice work balance and find a career in an industry that I love? So that's how I ended up at first, is that, it's in learning development. The people in the industry are fantastic. We're a software development company. We have a really great work-life balance. We finish at 1 p.m. on a Friday. So I'm quite blessed in terms of being able to pick the children up from school. So I guess I got lucky in terms of, knowing what I wanted or what was important to me, and then working backwards from that in terms of how I got there, and finding the perfect role for me in terms of achieving that, really. So that'd be my biggest tip. It's always like you can get lost in kind of chasing the next thing, but just start with actually what's the most important thing to you. Work backwards from that, put it out to the universe, and then everything will hopefully start to take care of itself once you make that happen.
Yep, definitely. Barry, that's the wrap. Thank you very much for being here.
No, thank you so much. You've been lovely to speak to you. Thanks for having me on as a guest. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, that's a wrap. What an amazing episode that was. Before you go, just let me ask you a very quick question. Do you know that your B2B company might be in a great danger of AI commoditization? And if your company out there is not standing out, if you're not fighting for the attention, which is the most important currency right now, then you are slowly becoming a commodity. And when you're a commodity, no one is going to buy from you organically on their own. So Content Monk, the agency that I run, is a full funnel content marketing agency that works with fast growing B2B software companies and helps them become category leaders, the main winners in the field, with original content that stands out, so reports, lead magnets, articles, AI content optimization for LLM search, massive content distribution, and the another thing that you're doing is we are monitoring different intent social signals across social networks to see what people are engaging with your content all the time and who online is a sales ready lead for you, but they just didn't subscribe yet. So that's how we help fast growing B2B software companies grow. We offer a free consultation for everyone, so don't hesitate to go to contentmonk.io and book a free strategy session with us, where you will get a free strategy and a battle plan without hard strings attached. See you there, and see you in the next episode as well. Have a great rest of the day.